These are the best Boss GT-1000 core features that you didn't know. The settings I will show you in this video will let you customize patches way easier and faster than ever before. Plus, let you expand the functionality of the Boss GT-1000 core beyond what you thought was possible. First, let's talk about the customization of the Footswitches. Inside of the master menu, we can scroll over to Control Assign. Inside of here, we have got a menu called Control Function. In Control Function, we have this table that lets you customize the different features that can be triggered with your Footswitches. Using the different encoder knobs with the associated row on the actual table, you can go ahead and actually switch these out with just a simple rotate. You can obviously see by default that the up and down arrow will cycle between the different patches, which is pretty obvious, but you can make these do completely different things. So if we go ahead and switch out the control mode on this pedal with this shortcut, pressing both of these foot switches here will allow us to go into this patch switching mode. You can see we can go up patches and we can also go down in patches. If we scroll over to a random patch, boot into here, and then go ahead and customize our assign control modes, we could, for example, set this to be a system setting, so it's global across all of our different patches. Scroll over to the top and, for example, have this first foot switch. Let's have it toggle our delay on and off as an example. As you can now see, if we assess the signal chain all the way at the bottom over here, we have got a delay block, DL1. If we toggle this foot switch, this will now toggle on our delay 1 block across every single patch that we may currently have loaded in. This is just a fast and simple example of how you can access that table and reassign foot switches, which you may not have thought you could do considering there's only 3 foot switches. The best part is because we can use this shortcut to switch between different layers of foot switches, we can have these do different things, then press these 2 foot switches in at the same time and now have it control these different effects blocks and vice versa. So it just gives you extra assign functions within the limited 3 foot switches. You can even take this customization one step further and customize the colors of the LED on the pedal. If you have a specific color code that you would prefer to use on these little LED lights here, you can actually scroll into that same control assign menu and go over to LED color. And then here you can actually customize what this light would display. Exactly the same with this little table matrix. You can have it display various different colors depending on what you actually require or what your personal preference is. On the topic of customizing presets, you may want to go ahead and save stuff onto your GT-1000 core. But after you've saved it, you may need to reorganize it a little bit. As time passes and you have this unit for many years or multiple months, you will create loads of different patches on this thing. And if you're performing on a frequent basis, you're going to constantly be switching out different performances and different set lists. And if you haven't got like a super complicated MIDI setup where you can press buttons in Ableton Live and it'll do a patch change on all your different devices in the band, and you just literally use these foot switches to scroll between everything, you're not going to want to scroll forever and ever and ever. You just want to literally scroll between your different patches in a simple click of a button. Thankfully, you can dive into your right menu by just clicking right, and you will see we have this option here, number 2, called Exchange. Pressing this knob will allow you to change the current saved position of the patch that you're accessing. And this essentially will swap it with a different patch. So if you were switching out patch 10 for patch 2, that would flip over to patch 2, and then patch 2 would become patch 10. Just allows you to switch things around and reorganize things really quickly. Right here, I have got user custom preset 10, and we're gonna go ahead and click right and exchange this out for user preset 2. So using knob 1, we can change the target where we're going to take it from and save it to. So we're going to roll over to target number 2, and we're going to go ahead and click right, and we'll execute the command, click OK. Now you can see user preset 10 is preset 2, and if we scroll all the way over to preset 10, clean crunch is now user preset 10. You can repeat this step multiple times if you were reorganizing lots of different presets and songs in preparation for a show. You might usually play a 2-hour gig, but you may be only doing a 30-minute set. So this will just allow you to basically scroll through everything and go 1, 2, 3, 4, rather than being like, okay, we've got patch 13, now got to go all the way to patch 26, now got to go back to patch 18, then back to patch 22, which can just get really stressful, and you don't really want to be doing that when you are on stage. Next, I want to show you probably one of the coolest and most advanced features you can do with the GT-1000 core, and that is using it in combination with a real-life amplifier. There is something called the 4-cable method, which allows you to use the Boss GT-1000 core as your multi-effects unit, whilst also combining it with the effects loop and the preamp section of a valve amplifier. So if you love the sound of the effects on the GT-1000 core, they're pretty good because they are Boss, but maybe not too happy with the actual amp modeling, or there's certain instances where you've got some really expensive amplifiers, like my Marshall stack behind me here, where you would want to use that instead in a studio environment or maybe on a larger festival outdoor stage. Luckily, because the GT-1000 core has got multiple effects loops, it's actually got 2, we can use the send and returns on the back of this pedal to leverage all of the effects on this unit whilst bypassing the amp modeling section and actually using our real life amplifier. And this is how you set it up. You're going to need 4 cables to achieve this. You could also use 6 cable method to do this in stereo, but I'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to turn down the output level all the way to 0 and also put our amplifier into standby to make sure that we don't have any crazy squeals or feedback if we plug this in the wrong way round. We're then going to use send 1 on the back of the GT-1000 core and take this guitar cable and plug it into the input on the front of our guitar amp preamp. We're then going to grab a second cable and plug this into the return 1 and then connect the other end of this cable into our effects loop send. This will essentially send the audio back into the GT-1000 core from our amplifier. This is going to allow us to separate the wet effects from the dirty distortion effects, giving us the optimal experience when it comes to signal chain. We're then going to take another cable and plug this into the GT-1000 core's master out 1, and then connect the other end into the effects loop return. Now I want to customize the signal chain on the GT-1000 core. We're going to click effects and scroll over to the divider. We want to make sure that we have this set to single. There is also the option to do dual mode if you're doing this in stereo, but to keep this simple, let's just keep it in single mode. We're then now going to customize the preamp section of our signal chain. You can see right here, we currently have an amp model loaded in. Obviously, we don't want to have this amp model enabled because we're using the real life valve amplifier of the Marshall behind me here. So we want to disable this. Otherwise, we're going to have an emulated amp model going into a real life amp model, and it's not going to sound very good, to just put it simple. So to disable this, we just want to press in the select button and deactivate this effects block. But we now want to scroll over to the left and enable the effects loop just by simply turning and toggling this on. The send and return on the GT-1000 core is now enabled, allowing us to access the preamp section and the effects loop on the real life amplifier, which we literally just set up. If you wanted to then repeat this process in stereo, we could do a dual divider and you could repeat the exact same thing. You could scroll down to your second divider down here and enable that second effects block, plug the additional cables in here and repeat the same process with a second amplifier. This now let us use our real life amplifier and all of its different channels, the clean channel, distortion channel, and so on, plus the effects loop for routing all the delays, wets, and reverbs into the amp and keeping those signal chains separate so our delays don't sound distorted, they sound nice and clean and pristine, and you'll be surprised by how good the results actually sound. You can even take this one step further and use the control pedal 1 button as an amp channel change switch, letting you toggle between the clean and overdrive channel on your amplifier with the GT-1000 core as well. This is a very complex and advanced setup for how you may use a GT-1000 core, and if you want to learn more about features like this so you can set this up for yourself, you should check out my Bosch GT-1000 Core Ultimate Guide, where I have over 7 modules, 33 lessons, and over 2.5 hours of on-demand video tutorials taking you through every single setting on this multi-effects unit. You will learn everything you need to know about the Bosch GT-1000 Core, from basic introduction, editing effects, the custom menus, input and output settings, loopers, and creating custom patches and presets, helping you unlock hidden functions and take your sound to new heights with creative techniques that will set you apart from the rest. And you can join over 4,000 students who have completed my Ultimate Guide series, linked down below in the description. Next, let me show you some simple shortcuts that will elevate your workflow on the GT-1000 Core. If we use these arrow keys, we can scroll left and right to change how we view our effects chain in detail, but also customize the display of the information on this master screen. This right here is one of my favorite ways to use the pedal. Next, you'll then want to scroll through all of your different patches with this new display mode. And the way you would traditionally do this is with the memory/value knob encoder and in singles, which could take ages. You might want to go from patch 64 all the way up to like patch 108 or something, and it'll just take you ages to scroll through there. You then over scroll or whatever. What you may not know is you can actually press and hold this knob in and rotate it at the same time to scroll through in tens, which is way faster. You can scroll through all of your user presets, scroll through all of the factory presets, and absolutely breeze through the menu system. This same shortcut can also be used when customizing effects blocks, amplifiers, and different tone modules. So for example, we've got our amp down here that we could customize, or we can press and hold and rotate to go through in 10s to adjust the bass, and then we could dive into our effects chain and do the same on our wah, our delay, whatever. Now, probably one of the best features of the GT-1000 core is its size. It's very compact, doesn't take up much space on your pedal board, but with that compact form factor does also become limited functionality with Footswitches. As we've already discussed in today's video, you can extensively customize these Footswitches and layer them up with multiple different functions assigned to each single Footswitch. But there will become a point where you do run out of Footswitches, or you just need a few more to make your life a little bit easier. And that's where an external Footswitch can be super useful, whether that be an FS6, FS7, or even an external MIDI foot controller where you could use MIDI functionalities to have a huge external footboard. On the GT-1000 core, you can connect this up with a few different options. There's this jack at the back here, which is your control pedal 1 and 2 or expression pedal, or you could use this one on the side here, which is control pedal 4, 5, and also expression pedal 2. Probably the most optimal setup is using external Footswitches on the back and then an external expression pedal on the side for some of the wah effects. Now, to set this up correctly, you're going to want a balanced TRS jack cable, which is one that's got 2 rings on it like this. The 2 rings will allow you to send multiple signals via one cable. So we've got 2 Footswitches obviously here, so we need separate channels for 1 and 2 to then be sent across each ring. So basically each Footswitch is dedicated to an individual ring. We can then hook this up at the back, plugging it in right here. And then we're going to plug it into this middle port on the FS7, which is for A and B, so we can use both of our Footswitches. Now, if your pedal starts to freak out a little bit like mine is here, you might want to switch out the polarity modes on the switches. So we can just switch that. You can see it stops, whereas if we leave it on, it seems to be triggering itself. So you may need to change some of those settings depending on how it comes straight out the box. We can then dive into our master menu and go over to controller assign. Inside of here, we have got assign settings, which is this huge menu where we have loads of different things that we can customize. So if we take assign 1, we could go ahead and scroll through a variety of different target controls that we may want to toggle. This could be things from increasing drive level, boosting a certain Footswitch, or just simply turning it on and off. So if we take delay 1, we can toggle this on and off to keep things simple. And then scrolling over to the right with this arrow key, we can expand this table further, where we can then customize the source of this control switch. And you can see we've got control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our expression pedals. Now, because we already have control pedal 1 set up here, which is straight out of the box, we're going to use control pedal 2 and 3 to get this set up correctly. Now, to make things a little bit confusing, for some reason on Boss Footswitches, they are the wrong way round. So you would assume normally that Footswitch A will be control pedal 1 and Footswitch B will be control pedal 2. For some reason, they're the other way round. So Footswitch A's control pedal 2, Footswitch B is actually control pedal 1 normally. But because this is actually technically control pedal 2 and 3, because we've already got control pedal 1, this is going to be basically control pedal 3, and that's going to be control pedal 2. So with that knowledge in mind, we're going to go ahead and set this to be control pedal 3, which will be Footswitch A. We can then change whether we want the toggle mode to be momentary, toggle, whatever. This basically means if it's toggle, it'd be like an on-off, on-off. If it's momentary, it will only trigger if it's press and held. So it'll be on when you hold it, it'll be off when you release it. So we'll put it as toggle. Once you've then spent some time setting these up and making sure the assign commands are all correct with the blocks you're trying to target, there's a few different ways that you can set this up with like global settings and memory settings, but I break all that down inside of the ultimate guide anyways. You can then use your different Footswitches to trigger the effects blocks. Don't forget, you can learn more about the ultimate guide linked down below in the video description. But if you want to see more settings on the Bosch GT-1000 core and other tips and tricks that will help you get the most out of this pedal, you should check out this video next, because if you like this, you'll like that.